If you need immediate help, please call the National Substance Abuse and Mental Health Hotline at 1-800-662-HELP. When you gonna let me get sober? Let me go home and start over. Welcome to Clean and Sober Radio, brought to you in part by Recovery Centers of America, the nationally recognized leader in drug and alcohol treatment, using proven evidence-based treatment, including 24/7 medically supervised detox, inpatient and outpatient options. You'll receive exceptional care from an expert team of master-level clinicians, physicians, nurses, and staff using 12-step methodology and medications. Jefferson University Hospitals and Thomas Jefferson University, providing excellent clinical and compassionate care in the Philadelphia region. A proven leader in healthcare and education since 1825. And Acadia Healthcare, with locations on the East Coast. Acadia maintains a standard for excellence in the treatment of behavioral health and addiction concerns. And now, here are your hosts, Gary Hendler and Mark Sigmund.
Hey, thanks everybody for joining us and welcome to the show. Clean and Sober Radio features real people with real stories about addiction to drugs and alcohol. Mark, what do you have this week in recovery news?
We have a couple interesting stories, starting out with the Duke of Essex. Prince Harry has come on record saying that he has used cocaine, mushrooms, and marijuana in his latest memoir.
Really?
Yes, including smoking pot at Kensington Palace's garden. And he says mushrooms allowed him to see the truth. And
all right, let's clarify Kensington for our listeners.
Yes.
We're not talking about Kensington in Philadelphia. We're talking about the palace.
Yes, we are. My wife has already ordered the memoir. People are all over this memoir, and he gets into a lot of things in that. But can you imagine?
Listen, every family has some kind of dysfunction.
Yes.
And they're no different.
Oh, you and I would be doing the same thing in the garden at the palace.
Of course we would. Of course we would.
Secondly, this is some disturbing marijuana news has been coming out. A survey of young adults is showing a large increase in marijuana usages. Those surveyed ages 19 to 30, 46% reported using marijuana compared to 29% 10 years ago. They're also coming out to say that people under the age of 18 that start smoking pot, 1 in 6 get addicted. It's usually 1 in 10 with adults, but there's something about the brain in that stage of development where they're seeing a lot more people get addicted if they're young.
Yeah, that's the scary stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's not harmless. I mean, we look around, we see all this stuff about marijuana. The kids are picking up on this.
I mean, you have said this for several years, Mark, that because the brains of these kids under a certain age are not developed, this will affect something in their heads.
Absolutely. They see a droppage in IQ points. Usually the brain doesn't stop developing till 25 or over.
Yeah.
And they're seeing delays in its development. So it's much more damaging for young adults to be doing this than adults.
Yeah, it's... Well, we did it when we were young. And nothing happened to us.
Well, that's...
I mean, nothing happened to me.
Imagine if our brains fully developed. We might not have ADD.
What could we have accomplished if we didn't start with marijuana?
I know. Speaking of accomplishments, Gary Hendler, my buddy and host, he's been added to the Montgomery County Commissioners, appointed him to the new member to the Prison Inspector Board for Montgomery County.
Yes, I do. Because it's a little off.
I botched it a little bit.
I was elected. I was appointed, which I'm very proud of, to the Montgomery County Correctional Facility. That is outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm on the board of directors, and I hope that I'll be able to do a good job in all aspects of that prison.
You're going to do awesome.
I hope I will. All right, we're going to take our first break. When we come back, we have an incredible guest. Sammy Salsa is our guest with an incredible story. So stay tuned. You're going to really enjoy this next hour.
This is Clean and Sober Radio.
Huntington Creek Recovery Center is Eastern Pennsylvania's premier provider of transformative care for individuals whose lives have been impacted by addiction. Our 40-acre campus offers a tranquil, recovery-focused environment. We specialize in evidence-based care that addresses the effects of trauma and offer a unique program specifically for adolescent males. Huntington Creek Recovery Center can help you achieve lasting sobriety. Call us today at 844-948-2320.
What's happening? Brandon Novak here from Those Movies Jacks, or author of that addiction memoir, Dream Seller. Do me a favor and tune into Clean and Sober Radio with Gary Hendler.
888-728-9941. This is Clean and Sober Radio.
We're also heard on these great radio stations: WGAC, Augusta, Georgia; WHFS, Tampa, Florida; and WWWE, the Big Talker 1100 in Atlanta, Georgia.
Spreading around the country.
Okay, Mark, we're going to have a great show today.
I'm real excited.
Yeah, we have a great guest, and you know, our guest is Sammy Salsa. And we had Sam. I don't know a lot about Sammy except, you know, what he has told me, and it's quite an interesting story. Sammy, welcome to Clean and Sober Radio.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So you have quite a story of criminal activity and then redemption, and you're living a clean and sober life, just like you're given a chance, a second chance, or as you said, 100th chance.
100 chances, because it took me a very long time to get to where I'm at today.
Right. Well, where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, in the Bedford-Stuyvesant section of Brooklyn.
Yeah.
But I was raised in all the areas of Brooklyn. I lived in Queens, Manhattan, the Lower East Side, in the Bronx. I've been around quite a bit.
Well, what kind of family did you? Your criminal activity, was that part of your family's?
No, my parents were very strict parents. They taught us morals and values. Okay. They made sure we went to school, which I was the only one that didn't want to go, because drugs in the streets was my thing, you know. My father taught me how to play guitar at the age of 7 years old. And he would give me a little shot of whiskey here and there. And then, most definitely, he would always tell me to light up a cigarette at the stove for him. By the time I got the cigarette too, and I was halfway smoking, you know. But at the age of 9 years old, we were still living on Troop Avenue in Brooklyn, and I was going to public school, and when I got out of school, I would go downstairs of the building to a little fruit stand that belonged to Miss Sophie and Al, and I would help them out, and they would give me 50 cents a day. But there was a lot of glue sniffing in the area, and people sniffing glue and stuff like that. I wish I got involved for a little bit, but once I met the main people that were sniffing all that glue and stuff like that, they were into doing heroin. Mm-hmm. You know? And back in those days, a bag of heroin cost $2.
Right.
Yeah. You know, in Brooklyn. You know, I'm pretty sure it's the same way in Philly and Chicago back in those days.
And also, you didn't have to worry back then about having fentanyl put into heroin.
We didn't have to worry about fentanyl because everything was cooked with, was actually mixed with quinine. And
quinine?
Yeah, well, quinine and sugar milk back in those days, you know. And it came to a point in my life where the first time I got introduced to heroin was a skin pop, a shot in the upper arm. Uh-huh. You know, and, I mean, the drugs were so pure then, you know, not with all these chemicals they have today. Fentanyl, vitamin E, they put in the drugs to cut them and stuff like that. They didn't have, it wasn't there. You know, right. Drugs were a lot purer.
Right.
You know. So the 50 cents I used to get every day, after 7 o'clock at night, I used to
How
go.
old? Yeah.
I was 9 years old.
9 years old. So what's that, third grade?
Third grade going on 4, because I went to the 4th grade in Bedford-Stuyvesant. in PS 39 on Stuyvesant Avenue and Gates Avenue. I never forgot that school because I was the only Puerto Rican there, and my brother Teddy. But Teddy went to the 5th, and then he went to the 6th. But I was a cheater.
You were what?
I was a cheater.
Yeah, so was I.
I get it.
Randall, you were a cheater too, weren't you, buddy?
No, I get
Class.
I'd get in the class, and back those days you had like a little exam book with a little covering up the answers, and how we just pulled it down as I go filling out the questions,
like a cheat sheet.
Yeah, like a cheat sheet.
Yep.
Yeah, and then I was in the 3rd grade, in the 4th grade. And then what they did with me is they noticed I was so intelligent, like I thought. They sent me to a school a couple of blocks from the house on Quincy Street called Junior Academy, and in that place you won things according to the scores you got. But since I was so always using my cheat sheet. I would get a camera here, a fishing pole there, or a trip to the swimming pool to the St. George Hotel on Atlantic Avenue, which I almost drowned. But things escalated from there on.
Let me ask you, how much schooling did you have? How far did you go?
Well, I went to Franklin K. Lane High School in Queens.
Did you graduate?
Jamaica Avenue. No, never graduated. I had 2 things in common, and then trenching an exit.
Right.
Class never saw me.
Right.
I was, just kept going.
So the environment you were living in, all your friends, they were all doing dope?
All of them.
And nobody was taking anything seriously? No school, no nothing?
No school,
it was just
nothing.
Party time, and you thought it would never end, right?
Oh, yeah, but by that time I started, by the 70s, 69 and 70s, I started doing 3 and 4 hits of Sunshine LSD and all the weed, because you had all that weed coming in from Vietnam, from Colombia, from Panama, and that was what was happening back then, until I got introduced to coke. When I got introduced to coke and I still was doing heroin, I started what they call a speedball, both of them mixed together.
Yeah, I know. Hey, if you're just joining us now, Sammy Salsa is our guest today. He's talking about his past life and given a second chance. And we're also we got to Sammy because our buddy Randall Jefferson from Tone and Tenor introduced us. So Randall's in here too, and it's just like it's partying like 1984, right?
We're 69, right? 1969.
1969, yeah. Okay, all right. So you're living in this. You're junior high school. You didn't finish.
I didn't finish.
Were your parents alive and were they around?
Yes. My parents were alive. Papa left the home when I was about 11 years old. Mm-hmm. Mom stayed with us. We brought up with a stepfather who was a very good man, who passed away in, I think it was 1998. And I was like the black sheep of the family. I was the one that was out there doing the wrong thing, getting in trouble, Rikers Island, Brooklyn House of Detention.
You were on Rikers Island?
Yes.
How old were you?
When I first hit Rikers Island, I was 13 years old.
Juvenile?
I was a juvenile, yeah. And they put me where all the tough guys were, and for some reason or another, I've always been a likable person.
Okay.
I've always been a likable person. People grab me under their wing and stuff like that, My mom suffered with me going back and forth from Brooklyn to Rikers Island just to take me to pair sneakers, underwears, and stuff like that. I made Mom suffer a lot.
I was just, I'm listening to you speaking, of course, and I'm just thinking, and Mark, you could probably agree with me. I never considered what I did to my parents during that whole addiction. I didn't think about it. I didn't care. It never came into my mind. But boy, we tortured them pretty good. Yeah,
we tortured them pretty good, and today, Mom passed away June 10th of 2005. But she did see me because I had just came out of prison for doing a 1.5 to 4.5 in the Poconos for a simple assault and terroristic threat.
All right, what you know that word simple assault? It was an assault, right?
It was an assault.
It was a simple?
It was pretty simple because I didn't hurt the person.
What'd you do?
I grabbed the person by the throat. You know?
Randall, did you see? I don't see anything wrong with that, do you?
No, it's just grabbed him by the throat.
Yeah, really.
That's simple assault, right?
So you got
a robbery?
And terroristic threats.
Right. Was there a robbery involved?
No. This was to a friend who was making me uncomfortable as we were drinking. And I did what I did, you know. So I was looking at 7.5 to 15 for the terroristic threat.
Yeah.
You know, and please come to show since I had mental problems and stuff like that at the time, which I still do. You know, I take medication for it and stuff like that. But I was given the opportunity to do 1.5 to 4.5. And I was given that break because of my mental status. Mm-hmm. But it came to a point that I was doing so much drugs at one time. Because in 2005, before Mom passed away, I got married February 14th of 2005. You know, my mom got to see me get married. Okay. I had my little put drive around with from work and stuff like that. Had a little mobile home, you know, and things would go good for a while. But after Mom passed away June 10th, I just picked up. So like I was like smoking crack with weed that they call that Rulies, smoking that at the same time. And at the same time, I was shooting up coke and dope. You know, whatever I can get in my system, that's what was going in my system. And you know, I thank God, you know, like after Mom passed away, my wife had a wedding to go to because she was a seamstress and she had made a wedding dress for a friend of hers. And that was a Saturday morning. And I tell her, Mom, I'm going to go into town for a minute. I'll be right back. I went into town with $20 in my pocket. I buy 2 bags of heroin. You know? So the guy tells me, he says, yeah, well, I told the guy, well, you know, I'll give you some of it, you know. So me being greedy and just thinking it was heroin, I threw it in the cooker, you know. I did what I was going to do, but I kept the empty bags in my hand. Mm-hmm. You know, so I walked out and I was like in a daze, you know, in the fence. Sure. And I threw my leg over the fence and went into her car and sat in there. And if it wasn't for some kids that were sitting across the street, little kids, I wouldn't be here today.
Mm. Why? What would you have done?
I OD'd.
Oh, you OD'd.
And it was fentanyl.
Oh. What year was this?
It's 2005.
2005, yeah.
Yeah, batches would come through.
Yeah.
How did the kids find it? Did you hear the story on how they found you? Or?
No, they was across the street. I got in the car because the car was across the street. And there's a small streets in the area. But I just sat in the car, and all I know is that all of a sudden they stiffen something under my nose. I wake up. The high is gone because that medication takes your high away. And the cop told me, he said, you're under arrest. And I said, why? I said, you have paraphernalia in your hand. Yeah. Those 2 empty bags. Yeah. I said, if it wasn't for them few kids that were across the streets that called the ambulance and the police on you, you wouldn't be here today.
Absolutely. Hey, if you're just listening to the show and you would like to watch us do the show, go to Facebook. Go to our Facebook page, Clean and Sober Radio, and you can watch us doing the show, just like these good folks. Judge Christopher Maddox is watching. Michael Forbes is watching. My wife, Marjorie Hendler, is watching. Samuel Rivera is watching.
Really? You watch yourself.
Yeah, that's right. Kathy Wolf-Collin is watching. Lillian Kulawaska. Oh, God, I knew I was going to butcher this. Let me get this right. Kulakolska.
There you go.
Is that good, Mark?
I passes the
your test
over here. Yeah.
Dennis Hannon is watching. Jane Shapiro is watching. Robert Brandis is watching. Suzanne Duncan is watching. I'm getting a lot of congratulations, too. Well, thank you. Debbie Reynolds, Rich Moyer, Larry Wing, Michael Shoemaker from Tennessee. Marlene Feynman is watching. Patrick Applegate. You got anything on there?
Laura Story. Whoa, Sammy, our lives are a lot alike. My mom got to give me my first 2-year coins, and I am still clean and sober. Good stuff.
That's good stuff. John Kuzian is watching. All right. So, I'm sure everybody is listening and watching, and they're relating in some way to your story.
Yes.
Anybody that watches this show or is just listening, they're not choir boys and girls. They're they get it. You know what I mean?
They get it.
So somebody like you telling a story like you're telling is inspirational to people because they know they have a chance as long as they're alive to make good.
Gary, can I say something?
Sure, Randall.
We Sammy and I met in a church in Chester, and he was with Miss Ruby Benson. I forgot the name of the place that you were at. And Sammy would come and sit in, and I befriended him and another guy, Robert, and another guy from the house was John. There was a fourth one that would come to church. And what made me want to jump in here, Sammy actually recovered from the fentanyl. The young man, John, who lived his sister lived on the main line, and at the same house, he told them, and I told him one day, I said, Sammy, John's, he's using it again, because his weight dropped and everything.
Yeah.
And John disappeared, I think it was a Friday night. He was going to go, and he was the sexton at the church. When they found John was up on Kensington Avenue, stretched out, cold as ice, because he was going up to Kensington Avenue buying drugs.
Anybody that can survive all this, you just got lucky, man.
Yeah, but John.
But he was a good guy. I mean, worked hard, and these guys. See, one thing people have to realize: it doesn't matter what your background is.
No, it doesn't.
You have to, and we're all put here for a reason. And some folks would have turned away from Sammy.
Sure.
They would have turned away from Robert. They would have turned away from John, because of their addiction and because of what their past was, or whatever their illnesses were, But you have to. There's good in everyone, And, when we would clean the church and all, and on Sammy there, down there, I mean, he was like an artiste with the toothbrush, making sure the brass was shining and all, and, and Robert. And, when we all found out about John, it was like a knife put,
it was. He went into
our heart.
He went into a coma.
That's the risk you take. We say, Randall, don't hate the person.
That's right.
Hate the addiction. You know what I mean?
Right.
All right. Yeah. All right. If you're just listening, you want to join the conversation, please give us a call at 1-888-728-9941. That's 1-888-728-9941. We're talking with Sammy Salsa. He's got an incredible story and a lot more we're going to hear about his life. And we'll be right back.
This is Clean and Sober Radio.
A cancer diagnosis can knock the wind out of you. The Sidney Kimmel Cancer Center at Abington Jefferson Health can help. Our brand new Asplund Cancer Pavilion brings you 86,000 square feet of cancer-fighting science for truly comprehensive care. Backed by the strength of an NCI-designated cancer center. Call 1-800-JEFF now. The Sidney Kimmel Cancer Center at Abington Jefferson Health. The power to out-science cancer.
Hey, this is Mark Stein from the classic rock band Vanilla Fudge, and you're listening to station WWDB.
888-728-9941. This is Clean and Sober Radio.
All right. Hey, listen, also, if you're in dire straits right now and you need help, call the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Hotline at 1-800-662-HELP. That's 1-800-662-HELP. a real person will answer the phone, and a real person will try to get you some kind of assistance. It's a good service. It's across the country. All right, so Sammy, so you're in high school. You got locked up the first time you did a year or whatever. You did a little more than a year. Did the criminal stuff keep going? And was your criminal activities as a result of your drug addiction?
Yes, it was a result of the drug addiction, because the only way that I can support my habit was by being a criminal. Either selling drugs, stealing a car, doing that, and whatever. I felt that each time I went to prison, I was scared straight, like the movie, scared straight. Yeah. But, I stuck it out. And I'm a little guy. I'm only 5'7". Back then, I must have been about 4 feet tall.
You got into a lot of fights, and also you said you were put in a hole a lot.
Yeah, I was put in a hole a lot. Actually, because of my mental status at the time, I was, how would you say that? There we go. So, my mental status at the time, I felt that, I was being threatened at all times, by bullies and stuff like that. And what I did was, I was put the first strike in, although I got myself kicked all over the place and put into the hole, and 30, 40, 60 days. And whenever I came out, they would put me in the officer's dining room to work, because the officers loved me. I'm a very easygoing guy, It's just that when I'm on drugs, I'm not that easygoing guy.
What was it like in the hole? You're by yourself for 23 hours a day? You're in there?
23. I spent 24 because I never went out to the yard.
Doesn't that start to make you crazy?
Well, while you're in there, and you hear the voices going around, you can't even make out the voices because themselves, you can say they're like sealed. And when you're in there, you hear noises and stuff like that. The bad part about coming out the hole is that you've been in there so long, even if you're working out in there and everything, you get only 3 meals a day. When you come out of there, you are so disorientated.
Oh, really?
Yeah, your mind is just going whack. You hear voices there, and everything. And one of the things that scared me a lot while I was in there was that in one of the cells that I was in the hole, you look out the window, and behind that fence was the death row building. And that was in Huntington.
Huntington. That's a state penitentiary in Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, yes. I've been to quite a few prisons, but never did as long as time as I did now. This time around, I was offered. They were offering me 8 and 30, 25.
For what?
For robbery.
Armed?
Armed, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They never found. It was a knife. They never found a knife or anything. Right. So they were still offering me 8 and 30, 25, and because I had the psychiatric record, that was my 4th strike. 3 strikes in your hour.
Yeah.
That was my 4th strike. I pleaded guilty to 5.5 to 12. That 5.5 to 12, I was supposed to do only 5.5 and come home, do my thing. But that wasn't the scene, since I was always fighting, and the parole board was always giving me a year or 6 months. Finally, when they let me go, they told me you'll be home in 6 months.
What year was this?
2015, 2016.
Were you able to get drugs easily in prison?
There are drugs.
Yeah.
Because I know one kitchen officer from the kitchen had thing going on with a couple of the fellas there, and they caught him with drugs. They caught him bringing in the drugs. So, he was a correction officer.
So he became an inmate.
He became an inmate, yeah.
In protective custody, I'm sure.
Most definitely. Yeah, but, I never indulged in it, while I was away. It's too expensive.
What year did you get, God bless you, what year did you get clean?
2006. May 2nd, 2006.
So you were clean through these prison runs, right?
Yes. This last prison run.
The last one?
This last one, yes. I was clean. May 2nd now, it'll be 18 years I've been clean.
Wow. That is awesome. Yeah. It must have been hard again in prison. I know it was expensive, but were you doing meetings and stuff like that in prison, or?
Well, really, I didn't see anybody getting high, but I know that drugs were there.
Yeah.
I would see guys in the yard smoking weed and stuff like that, but I've never seen the heroin, coke, or anything in there, But I've heard of the things that was going on, and and through people that I knew personally, that were doing it too, But that wasn't my train of mind at that time and point. Because that time and point, I'm losing a whole bunch of years of my life.
Yeah.
And it's to now that, thank God, to His grace, because I go to church and everything, and I'm a musician and I play with other bands and stuff like that. I'm at a point right now in life where God is blessing me, where every time I look over my shoulder, somebody says, "Good job, Sam. You're handling your things." I live alone. I have 2 cats, which one is very antisocial. But I have a nice place. I'm comfortable. I never expected to buy a new car at my age.
Yeah.
My car's going on 3 years old, but I got a brand new. When I was going to the church, I was in a halfway house with Randall.
With Randall?
No. I would go on Sundays and pick them up, and and Sammy and Elio and Robert and John, and bring them to the church, and and we formed a camaraderie. I looked past what they had been doing.
Good.
And this is what some of these folks need to do when folks come into these churches. Don't alienate them, embrace them, because it could be me.
Give them hope.
There's
it could
no
be
question
anybody,
about that, man.
And then my mom would make cakes and all of that.
Mom was always feeding me. Every Sunday she came with something new for me. I take it home, I munch it up.
They was, because they had to cook their own meals and glory to Miss Ruby Benson, who was the I don't know what her title was where you were at, but she was in the church, and she was the one that bought Sam, and Sam would sit there with her, and like, what? Let me go talk to this guy. And then he started talking, and I'm like, look, I'll drop you off. I'll pick you. I had to come down 95, got off Highland Avenue, went to where they were at, picked them up, hung out at church, then we took them back.
People that are watching will look at this guy, Sammy, okay? And we hear this a lot. Look what a nice man this is. How did he commit all these crimes? Look how sweet he looks, But you know what? There is obviously, with drug addiction, there's mental illness.
It's a mental illness.
With everybody.
Yes, it is.
Just different levels. And, it's interesting. I'm sure people are watching. No, they're probably not thinking that. They know, people have come up to me or to Marco.
But the people, but you have to cut you off, Gary, but the people that haven't been addicted to drugs or whatever, they don't know. That's what's good about what you guys do. And the people you bring on. Because some of the things that Sammy, we've talked a lot. Some of the things he just revealed, I never knew,
Yeah.
But this is how we become educated, into and hearing the stories. But we have to, as people, embrace our fellow man. Regardless of what
Randall,
they do.
There's stigma still out there.
Right.
Major stigma with people that are using drugs, not necessarily
because it's a big business. Come on,
it's a business, but people are
business.
People, as you just said, people who don't understand it or have not been affected by it, like a family member, they don't get it usually, or they don't care to get it either.
Oh, my family's so proud of me these days.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh yeah. You know, I'm not that. You know, one thing I've always done, I've always dressed. You know, that's one thing about me. Even when I was in my uncontrollable substance abuse problem, but you know, I've always dressed. But today, okay, I've been clean going on 18 years. Yeah. Today I have more, not for myself financially or to support anybody else financially, but I have the gift of gab to talk to somebody and say, man, this is what's up. I went through it. I'm through with it. I done hung up my gloves.
And I think we have a responsibility to give back like that. You know, once we get into recovery, you know, we say you get clean, you don't use, you get sober, your mind starts to rewire itself correctly, and then you give back.
Yes. I mean, I've been in drug programs. I even went to one of the most rigidest programs there ever is and there ever was, which is Phoenix House in Manhattan.
Okay.
I went through that program. I stayed there 3 months and I walked out. I couldn't take the pressure.
Was it worse in prison?
It was a little worse in prison for the reasons that you have people confronting you all the time for your little mistakes, for your little errors, you know. Yeah. You have staff members, when you approaching them, they tell you, go sit on the log because you can't talk to me out of term. You know?
It's like the military in a way.
It's like a military. It's like I had the operation on my leg in 79. I was there.
Yeah.
And they told me to go up the stairs. You know, and I told them, my shirt's got my back. I ain't going up the stairs. I'm using the elevator. I have an operation on my leg. The doctor says, regardless of his operation or not, he's got to go up the stairs. You know, they put a sign on me for about a month until I broke down, stating my shirt's got my back's got my shirt, or my shirt's got my back. You know, and until I started complaining about people, that's when they took off the sign and they made me. An acquisitionist.
I got it, yeah.
I was an acquisition, you know. It was a rigid program.
Yeah.
You know, but through all that I went through and learned from others, from my mistakes, I know I put my family through a lot.
Of course.
You know, mom's not here anymore, pop's not here anymore, my oldest brother's not here anymore. So there's like 5 of us left. You know, well, yeah, 5, because there were 7 of us, and two died. My oldest brother and my baby sister, and you know, I'm at a point now that, you know, dying is part of life. I understand this. The Bible tells you it automatically. You know, when you first start looking into your Bible and reading your Bible, you start learning all these little things. You know, and as you go learning, you know, you get stronger.
No. Yeah, absolutely. We're talking to Sammy Salsa, and you know the message I'm hearing from you is you can get a second chance.
Yes.
I don't care how bad you were. You know, nobody should really be judging. At least I can't judge you because of the stuff I did, and I know darn well Mark can't either. and Randall probably is hiding some stuff we don't even know about.
Absolutely.
So it's inspirational. You're showing our listeners and viewers that you can turn your life around.
You can turn your life around. You know, it's not easy, especially when you serve most of your time away in the penal system. You know, when you come home, you know, you're ready to give up, go back to your old ways, because the old ways is the only thing you know.
That's right.
You know?
That's
but,
right.
You know, I know my little bit of music. I do this, I do that. I play this, I play that. I was singing with the choir at the church with Randall, you know, and things have just started moving the way I wasn't expecting. But they started moving in such a positive way that I'm comfortable with Sammy Salsa.
That says it all. You're comfortable with yourself.
And I be talking to girls and stuff like that. You know, I'm not a playboy or anything, but I have a lot of lady friends. You know, and they say, "Man, you come a long way."
That's right. You know,
and me, I know this because I'm living proof. if you want it, with all the years of life that you wasted away in the penal system, in the streets, doing nothing, getting beating up people, when you come to open your eyes and you pursue life the way I'm pursuing it now,
we can change as long as we're alive, right?
We can change.
We have a lot of people watching us right now. 1-888-728-9941. Ed, Mary Donnelly is watching. Nikki Lazarus, Jan Olaf Atterborn, Dustin Green, Judge Andrea Duffy.
Judge Duffy.
Mark Willing is watching. Mark Willing says, Sammy is a hero.
Wow.
That's nice, right?
That's nice to hear. Thank you so much.
We're trying to give the message out here. We laugh, we have fun doing the show, but there's hope. You can't give up, man, if you're using. And you spending all those years behind bars and still you're out here with a positive attitude, it's pretty remarkable, man. That's really remarkable.
But and willing to share.
Yeah.
A lot of people. I went on. No, you weren't on vacation. He's sharing his real story.
Yeah.
That's what's amazing. I'm learning. I've known him for a minute, and when I saw him, I was going to stop somewhere else, and I pulled up into the 7-Eleven. I saw him, and I looked, and he was so proud of his new car. He said, "Oh, it's 3 years old now, but it's his."
Man.
It's the proudness that comes with it.
That's great. Man.
So
that is great.
That's why I told him, I said, I'm gonna get you in touch with Gary, because you have a real story to tell.
And you can hear the gratitude, right? The gratitude.
Yeah.
That's such a big part of your story.
But you know something? I've always been a humble person.
That's true.
Because my parents brought us up being humble. Because my parents were very humble. But with this last time that I did away, and all the fighting that I did, even though I got pushed around most of the time and knocked down and thrown around most of the time, I came home and by going to church and doing what I had to do, the humbleness that I had before cannot be compared to the humbleness I have now. Because I was humble, but I still had a drug habit.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
But now I'm more humble, but there's nothing for me to say, wow, I got a problem, let me go get high. That's what most of us are good for.
So now you go pull out your bongos, right? Or your congas. And start playing music.
You were telling me a story about your sister when she was dying. And, you had made up a very good point. That's the time you could have gone out.
That's the time I made a good point to you. Yeah, I told you, like when she died, or when she was going through everything, I could have just gone out and said, well, heck with it all. Let me get high. Let me cure that painful feeling.
Yeah.
But I didn't do that.
Yeah.
I kept it in mind that if I would go back to my old ways, always, and I keep thinking each and every day when I go to Kensington in them areas, I keep thinking every day, if I go through this, I'm going to wind up in the same situation, and who knows if that next shot it's going to be the second shot of fentanyl that is going to kill me. I don't have another run. It's not in me.
Right.
But I'm at ease, I'm at peace, and I pray God, that people will come to me and say, Joe, teach me, show me how you did it.
There's different degrees, I think, with people that feel like they've hit bottom. Some people think they hit bottom because they got into a car accident or 2 or 3. And then there's other people that you've spent years in prison and you've come out with such a positive attitude. So I'm amazed that people like you who can do that. Sometimes you hear people that have been incorrectly incarcerated for decades and they come out with a positive attitude, man. And you have that attitude.
Well, sometimes you got... Yeah, well, actually, the young bucks today, they go in there, rah-rah. They come out, and they come out rah-rah. They come out worse,
Yeah.
But I realized that I'm not getting any younger. I'm 67 years old.
Yeah.
My life may be over. Who knows?
Anybody.
Any second now, any minute now, any hour now, any day now.
Right.
Right. I'm content. I'm content, and I'm very happy to have some good, positive friends in my life.
When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Sammy, and we're going to get some more insight. We learn stuff every time we have a guest on, and I'm learning a lot about you, and I'm feeling, I should be maybe more grateful than I am, and I'm taking a lesson from you. We'll be right back.
This is Clean and Sober Radio.
Diversity in the workplace is more than gender, ethnicity, and even age. It also means people in recovery. The Higher Calling Foundation works to end the stigma of substance use disorders in the workplace by helping those in recovery find jobs, get career counseling, and more. All things insurance doesn't cover, and all at no cost. And encouraging businesses to hire employees in recovery, because with the Great Resignation, there are jobs to be filled, and employees in recovery are an untapped demographic. It's mutually beneficial, and it's simply good business. Started by employment attorney in recovery Kevin Heyer, the Higher Calling Foundation believes everyone deserves a second chance and works to make that happen. And now, diversity in the workplace demands it. Visit highercalling.org. That's HYER calling.org, and find out how we can help you.
888-728-9941. This is Clean and Sober Radio.
It certainly is Clean and Sober.
7th year, right? Or
more, Mark. I think more. I think 9.
9. I think I've been with you 7.
7 years you've been with me.
Gosh, time flies.
It does, doesn't it?
Yes, and what a great story today. And we're seeing on the message board about gratitude. And, it's always been said that it's very rare that somebody picks up on a day when they're grateful for their recovery.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very true.
Yeah. Hey, I think we have a new a viewer
who
I know, Blake Rosen. Hey, Blake, why don't you give us a call at 1-888-728-9941?
He's brand new, and we're just summoning him.
Are we still going to give away a card to the fifth caller?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I was thinking, it sounds like to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like the church and your religion was paramount in terms of staying clean. Am I right, or is that?
You're very correct about that. Yeah, you're very correct about that. Like life without prayer, it's not life. Mm. Because if you get up in the morning and you say the Serenity Prayer, that's enough for the day. That'll open your heart to better things, to look at better things that day. Because you can't live for tomorrow. You got to live for today, because this is the day that you're living. You understand?
And live your life with the Serenity Prayer. Don't just say it. Live your life with those principles.
With those principles, yes. I mean, you can listen to the to people talking about, I'm clean and sober, but I don't believe in God. And say, you don't have to believe in God. You have to believe in yourself and have faith in God. Because, people say there's no God out there. Okay, there's many atheists. That's their decision. But you have people that out in the street that dislike God, and they get arrested by the cops. The first thing they say, "Oh God, why me?"
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, that's how you. I don't believe in God. God is nobody to me.
As soon as they're in big trouble,
oh God, why?
Oh God, help me.
Yeah,
foxhole prayers too.
That's
right?
true.
Yeah. And I've learned that because I was brought up in a Pentecostal family. My family is a religious family, and they've always actually, because my addiction and the way that I ran my life, they didn't want to associate with me, But now they are looking for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a half brother from my father's side, who's supposed to be some sort of what they call those. He's some sort of does something in the church. He has his own church in Mexico, and he criticizes every little bit of the things that I did. My other brother, half brother, from my father's side, you know, he doesn't criticize because he doesn't understand. He's a missionary. Oh, but the other brother, one is in Mexico, he considers himself an apostle. Okay? And then I have my kid brother here in Philadelphia, my half brother, who's on Facebook all the time. He goes to church, he's Pentecostal. And, you know, I invited him over to the house a couple of times. Yeah, when I have time. You know what I wrote one day? You know, I said, let me tell you something. Pentecostal or no Pentecostal. You know, you have a half brother, and he's your oldest brother, and he's looking for your company. You know, you being Pentecostal should be able to have heart and say, well, even though he did bad, he's doing good now. Let me go to his house and preach to him.
Yeah, you know what? It's called hypocrisy.
Hypocrisy.
You know, bless you, Randall. Hypocrisy. Talking this, but doing the opposite.
I'm doing the opposite, you know. But thank God, she's doing good.
Good.
He's doing good. Guy got a college degree. He's got a wife. He's got his kids, you know. And, you know, after I told him that, you know, he started trying to associate with me more. And I'm not going to neglect him. You know, he's his blood. I'm not going to neglect anybody being blood or not, because we all have the same blood. You know?
Sammy, do you miss anything from the old days?
To be honest with you?
Yeah. I mean, getting high was not all bad, was it?
Well, actually, I played music in a lot of clubs in New York.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And as young as I was, at 12, 13 years old, playing in nightclubs, you know, the people used to see me and, yeah, man, you bad. You know, and when we finished the set, they'd come up to me and say, no, come on in the car, let's go in the bathroom. You know, they give me a $20 back here, take that $20 bill. Well, now open it up with drugs. You know, at that age, you know. So people were turning me on because I'm a musician. Because I'm a musician and they like what I'm doing.
I know, but it's sad, you know, when you think about that. You're a little kid, but that's because of that environment, I think, is what drove you to all the criminal activities. You didn't know any better, did you?
That's what made me a grown-up ahead of time.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But look what you're doing now. Look what you've become through all your adversities, and you know, just by coming on here and showing people you can be a good guy, basically. You know.
Yeah.
And that's what you're giving back.
But you know, sometimes a person is a bad person in the street, and when they become good guys, you know, that's when they get hurt the most.
Mm-hmm. I guess so. But also, it depends who you're hanging with, too.
It depends who you hang with. Me, I hang by myself. I'm from home to my appointments or to my little part-time job or whatever. Home again. I don't even cook anymore because my lady friends, they cook and they come over and bring me a little bit of food, you know? And, you know,
the life right there, right?
I don't get urges.
Right.
I don't get urges, you know? And because one time I was going through Kensington, the train station over there, where all the people were hanging out, and I got like $500 in my wallet, and I got this urge. I said, "Wow, man, Sam, stop there. You can buy 2 bags, and start one in the car. It's not the only one in the morning." And then I see cops like 2 blocks away, hanging out, watching everybody on that one station. Yeah. And I said, "I just got a brand new car. I'm going to stop here and go by, and when I get out the area and get in my car, the cops are going to bust me. They're going to catch me 2 bags on me, and they're going to take my car and just my license and everything." It's not worth it.
You played the tape.
I played the tape.
Well, listen, man, thanks for coming on the show. Randall, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Remember, if you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, Help is available. Please call 1-800-662-HELP. For Clean and Sober Radio, I'm Gary Hendler.
I'm Mark Sigmund.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about this broadcast, please join us on our mission at cleanandsoberbroadcasting.com.